Hello and welcome back to Switched In. I am Joshua, I am the other half of Switched In, so Dom has done most of the videos up to this point on the channel. This is my first one, so I'm going to do my best not to screw it up, but the thing that I wanted to talk about today were physical Switch games. That is, games that you collect on the Switch that are a little bit harder to find than your standard fare, either because they were done in a limited release, maybe they're not available in this region, or maybe they were actually fairly mass-produced, but they just weren't well advertised by some independent publisher, and they can be kind of hard to track down if you don't know where to look. And I'm particularly excited to make this video because I am a huge fan of collecting video games almost as much as I am of playing them. Now, Dom is definitely a big physical collector as well, however, he's more likely to entertain the idea of a digital purchase than I am. So with all that being said, what I really wanted to do today was just go through some of the places that I go to find games that, again, you're not really likely to find on the shelves at your local Gamestop. So all that being said, let's just go ahead and dive right into it. And right off the bat, I feel like you can't even talk about weird or kind of obscure Switch games without bringing up limited run games. And honestly, I absolutely love limited run games, particularly now more so that they do open pre-orders for a lot of their titles, so there's less of a chance that you're going to have to make a mad dash to check out online whenever a new game drops, and then be forced to sort of deal with eBay scalpers, which is not a fun position to be in. But that's really the most that I'm going to say about limited run games. They're not really part of the 5 that I'm going to outline here, and that's because I feel like at this point, even though they are limited run games, I feel like they are probably one of the more commonly known places where you can pick up games like that. So that's all I'm going to say about limited run games. If you already know, then you know. If you're not familiar, it is a place where you can go get games in small batches. However, lately I feel like those batches are not quite as small, as a lot of their games, like the more recently released Shantae games, are actually done in an open pre-order fashion where people can order as many as they want up to a certain point of time, and then they cut it off so that you can't order anymore. So with limited run out of the way, let's go ahead and go to another publisher who is very similar to limited run, but I feel like they're not quite as well known, and that would be Special Reserve Games. Special Reserve Games is very similar to limited run games, but there are some key differences I feel are worth pointing out. Namely, they do not have nearly as many games that they have put on offer because they are a younger company than limited run games. However, they do still get some really high quality releases, such was the case for me recently when I picked up a copy of the Hotline Miami collection for the Nintendo Switch. Some other offerings from Special Reserve Games include games like Absolver, Downwell, and more recently they did a release of Carrion. And one of the things I really like about Special Reserve Games is the packaging for their titles is absolutely stellar. It feels like an incredibly premium product. I love that the packaging and the additional inclusions like color manuals or art prints feel like they're made with a lot of love and care, and also that a lot of their releases are individually numbered on the outside so you know exactly which number in the batch you were able to get a hold of. Now, I only recently had my first experience with Special Reserve Games, but so far, based on what I've seen, they seem to ship pretty quickly, they stay in regular communication with their customers through their own Discord, and honestly, it's just been a really great experience all around, so if you are looking for some weird, more obscure Switch games, you'll probably find more and more of those popping up on Special Reserve. Next up would be Fangamer. Now, Fangamer doesn't only deal in video games, although they definitely have some, but they also have a lot of really cool merch on their site as well for individual titles, whether your interests lie in things like Hollow Knight, or Undertale, or more recently Stardew Valley, which now has a physical collector's edition coming out for the Nintendo Switch in just a couple of months. And like Limited Run or Special Reserve, they do offer exclusive games that you can't really find anywhere else, but usually they appear to be in far greater supply. For instance, as of this recording, you can still order the collector's edition of Undertale for the Nintendo Switch, which comes with a locket and a whole bunch of other goodies, without much hassle. And one of the things that made it very clear to me that this is often overlooked as a place where you can buy Switch games is the fact that you'll see titles like Undertale being offered on eBay for incredibly inflated prices, and it's basically playing on the ignorance of the fact that the people who see it on eBay probably assume it was a limited run release or something where there's not very many available, when in fact you can order it at a very reasonable price if you just head over to Fangamer to check it out. And like I mentioned briefly, in addition to video games, they have a ton of other cool collectibles in the form of like prints or albums or soundtracks and things like that, and I'm happy to say they ship reasonably quick as well. Next up is I Am 8-Bit. I Am 8-Bit does a lot more than just Switch games, but they have caught some praise and criticism for releasing what a lot of people just call glorified repro cards. Those being essentially fancy reproduction versions of classic titles like Street Fighter II or Mega Man X. However, when it comes to their Switch games, they've got some absolute darlings, including one of my personal favorites, and that would be Gone Home. And I'm referencing Gone Home on purpose, specifically because this was a game that I missed the first time around when they made this game available for purchase on their site for about $34.99. What should have been a $30-ish physical title quickly shot up to over $100 in some cases on eBay. However, what I like about I Am 8-Bit is that they will periodically restock certain titles like Gone Home. And that's something I really appreciate for fans, because sometimes a limited release will come out, or maybe it's not even a limited release, but it is for a limited time and not in limited quantity, but there isn't a ton of advertising done that explains this fact, so somebody may be really excited about a certain game and then find out that they just can't get it again without paying exorbitant prices on eBay. So the fact that they have done periodic restocks on certain titles is definitely something that I can appreciate. The next place that I would say you could go get some rare or less known about Switch games would be to actually go directly to individual publisher websites. And some recent examples that I can think of would be PM Studios or 3D Realms, both of which offered physical releases that weren't available in a widespread capacity. PM Studios had Horizon Chase Turbo, a delightfully fun throwback to games like the Cruisin' series or Outrun, and 3D Realms actually released a physical copy of their game Ion Fury. Now, it's not that 3D Realms or PM Studios are the only ones that do this, I'm just making a point that it does make sense to go to individual publisher or developer websites to kind of keep an eye on what physical releases they might have, because in a lot of cases that may be an indie game or it might be something that doesn't have as widespread appeal as, say, like a AAA game or something like that, and for whatever reason they're not going to be published by somebody like Limited Run or Special Reserve. They're certainly not going to show up on the shelves at your local GameStop or Best Buy, and really the best way that you can get a hold of copies of these games is to check out the publisher site directly and see if they might be offering it. Such was the case for me with PM Studios when it came to Horizon Chase Turbo, a game that previously I believe was only available in limited quantities in Brazil for the PlayStation 4, I want to say, but they did eventually end up putting a Switch copy on their website that you could go ahead and buy at a very reasonable price, again, without having to pay inflated, crazy eBay prices. And finally, the last place online I would say where you can find rare or more obscure Switch games would be to go to import shops like PlayAsia or even Amazon Japan. The latter of which I realize is not exactly a small import shop, but just stay with me here. I don't import a ton of games, but I can definitely vouch for PlayAsia, which usually has physical copies of games that are worth checking out, which you just can't find here. Sometimes they're for a different region, like my copy of Onimusha Warlords for the Switch, which only ever got a Japanese release, but it did have English language support, and one of the things I particularly like about PlayAsia is they're really good about listing what languages are available for which titles in the product descriptions on their site. However, beyond PlayAsia, you can absolutely create an Amazon Japan account and have stuff shipped to the US. This is actually where I was able to purchase a copy of the Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VIII Remastered Double Pack for the Nintendo Switch, and more recently, Moon, the anti-RPG from the PlayStation era that never had an official English translation until recently thanks to Tim Rogers' translation work in making sure that the game could be played by American audiences. And finally, as a bonus, I will say that you should absolutely keep an eye on your local game shops as well. I'm not talking about GameStop or Best Buy, although every now and then those will surprise too, but generally speaking, you never know what you're going to find when you support a small local business, and there have been more than one occasion where I walked into a local shop and found a game that I didn't even know existed, let alone got a physical release for the Nintendo Switch. Alright, so that's it for this one. Really, I just wanted to run through some of the places that I go to find physical Switch games that you wouldn't normally see out and about at like Walmart or Target or something like that. But hey, what about you? Do you have any advice for other people who are looking to beef up their Switch collection or find some weird games they might not know existed otherwise? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch this. I do appreciate it. For all things Nintendo Switch, keep it right here on Switch Den, and we'll see you next time. Alright, bye.